Hello and welcome to Streetwise podcast, where we talk about the money move, what's happening in the money markets with my esteemed colleague, Coach Blooming. Coach Blooming also has a very thriving social media presence. I see your Facebook following is increasing and also your YouTube channel is growing, as well as the X following. Congratulations on that and welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much, Coach Isaac. I'm excited to be here today again.
Yes, thank you. And as we always do, the first port of call, we are going to just jump into what's really going on in the market before we go in the economic data, share what we think about what's really going on in the market in terms of in the future, but also some moves that we are making in the market. So let's dive into what's happening in the market in real time. So right now, the equities market is largely green. That means the stocks are in the green. As we can see, the S&P 500 today, it's actually 0.1% up. But, you see some stocks like Tesla, it's 0.71% down, which is a normal fluctuation in my view. Stocks go up and down. But also, if I look at the DAX, that is the German market, it's 0.44% down. It's red. The Dow Jones, it's down 0.21%. But interestingly, like we also observe, the VIX today is green, but it's been very volatile. I've been trading it, and today I had a very good trading day. Let me just highlight how this week has been. If we look at this chart here, you can see that the S&P 500 opened around this level higher, and then it has been fluctuating. On Wednesday, it dropped. It opened lower, but ended up edging higher and higher. And this is something that I find very interesting. Coach, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think for this week, again, since the start of 2025, we've been in a bullish cycle, technically.
Yes.
And whatever we saw this week, especially on Wednesday, I think there was news that Trump was going to put another tariff or something like that, and that kind of a little bit
Yes.
spooked the market. But
Yes.
eventually, when Trump said he wasn't going to put that into effect, again, the market just recovered. In the grand scheme of things, I tend not to pay attention to what exactly is going on in the market over a short period of time
Mhm.
because when you zoom out, you tend to see the bigger picture. So
Mhm.
whether the Dow or the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq is up or down today, as I've learned, again, being a student of the market, we can make
Yeah.
money whether the market is going up or it's going down. It doesn't really matter. But again, it's just something that we continue to do because we're student
Yes.
of the market and we're practitioners. We keep buying stocks, crypto. So again, these are just short-term moves, and
Yes.
to me, it's just a nothing burger. It's nothing really exciting this week, technically.
For for me as a trader, I think I am very interested in the short-term volatility. So those movements, like if President Trump or any other macro or within specific businesses that I am trading or investing in happens and the market fluctuates, I like to take advantage of that. But for the long term, the grand scheme of things, like you said, I am a buy and hold largely. And I think right now I'm kind of like, 40% equities and the difference is in cash, which I use for trading. Now, I think probably let's move on to some interesting earnings. Reddit is one of those companies that I've been following. I missed buying the stock when it IPO'd. Usually I like to see how the stock performs, but I'm just gonna share some highlights on how they performed in their earnings report and pick your brains, coach, on this stock. So Reddit actually they beat their revenue forecast for the year. It went up by 71%, which is phenomenal. And I mean, it's still a growing company. And in that case, what I found very interesting was the fact that they managed to increase their daily active users by 46%. And year on year, Reddit advertising it grew by 60%, which shows that there are diverse industries that are participating. So these are some bottom line that I look at. And now we are talking of the artificial intelligence play. Reddit actually indicated that they now are developing an AI tool that's going to help in answering and also the machine translation into multiple languages. That means it's gonna increase the global reach. But like any business, there are some things that I think might be of concern, including the issue of the volatility that was caused by the Google search algorithm change that affected the traffic. But overall, their profitability in Q4, they show that they are still making a loss of about 84 million, primarily due to the accounting charge. But I think in terms of the long-term play, what do you think about this earnings, coach? I like to look at the long term, but I look at it quarter by quarter, right? And I look at the trend. And it dropped after reporting, but it already went up. I think the last time I checked, it was at $202 per share.
So for me, I don't personally know a lot about Reddit, but
Yes.
all I know is that IPO'd, was it last year or 2 years ago? I mean, it's
Yeah,
still
last year.
pretty fresh.
Yes.
So, and for a growth stock, for a company
Yes.
that is just not yet profitable, yes,
Yes.
we expect some volatility. They're making losses, but they're still having users. At least they're generating revenue via advertising. I
Yeah.
mean, those are still positive things that I will look at, provided there's still engagement. They're using AI to enhance users' experiences. I think to me that is still good. I think a good thing will also be good to look at the chart, like the 5 year
Yes.
return or the 2 year return or whatever,
Yes.
the return has been. But because I don't know so much about the stock,
Yeah.
again, if users find it valuable and you can translate this into multiple languages, again, it makes it easier for international expansion. So if they are users and they're finding it advantageous using the platform, advertising
Mhm.
is going up, then yeah,
Yeah.
people that like it.
Interesting.
But I'm
Yes.
not really into Reddit, but
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I would want to buy if it drops maybe by 30, 40, 50%. But I like the fact that it's like Meta and Google. I think the
mhm,
other issue of the data mining aspect to have, all these characteristics for the data, for these millions of users, I
right.
think it's something that can potentially be leveraged, in the short term using AI, maybe to look at the consumer habits. So I see a lot of value in that. So I think it's a
Right.
kind of like a play that I look at like AI play in the future. But again, I'm not gonna buy it at this price level now.
So even if
uh,
you eventually buy it, will you consider it as a short term or a long term portfolio stock, like maybe a trading stock or a
Yes,
long term one?
medium to long term hold. What I've seen is that, and again, whatever we are saying here is not supposed to be taken as investment advice. This is two friends who love to talk about what's happening in the market, and we also have some portfolios in the market that we manage for our respective families. Now, I was gonna say that I think for me, what I've seen, I've been making quite a very good return in my trading, right? But also I have, the long-term portfolio. Let's say if I'm making 25% compounded per year in some of my accounts, 28% compounded over the past 3 years, right? Really beating the S&P 500. And I'm gonna see over the long term. And I'm sure you have been beating my returns by a very big margin. Congratulations for that.
I'm
But
just a risk taker, that's all.
but for me, what I'm realizing is I have been using some profitable trading strategies. So what I'm doing is I am making money from trading. So I need a bit of more capital. So let's say if I have 60% of my capital that I'm using for trading and I'm generating excess income and I am buying equities each time it pulls back. I'm taking profits and compounding it at a slower rate, but for my trading, it's been going like maybe 50% return in a year, right? And I'm taking the profits. So the key thing is durability, seeing if I can beat the market, or continue compounding at that rate. It's really phenomenal. I think it just depends. Reddit, I will take it as a short to medium to long term play because I believe that if they continue on that trajectory, they might grow. It's
Right.
unlike, those big companies like Google, Amazon. If I get in at a good price, they have a great potential, but
Mm,
they are in the trillions in terms of their valuation. So I
mm.
think I would see a kind of like a Palantir kind of play that I believe it might, go to maybe, hundreds of shares. So I want that upside on my long-term play. I don't know what you think in that regard. You said it's not a
Yeah,
play.
yeah, it's because I'm not familiar with the stock itself, with the
Yeah,
company itself, so I tend not to just give any specific guidance
yeah,
on that. But for the ones that I'm into, yeah. And I think one of the things that I also learned, maybe for any position that one wants to own later on, one can open a cash secured put, but that requires you having the fund for at least 100
yes,
stocks. So
yes,
if one doesn't
yeah,
have that, then we just have to wait until the market gives us the opportunity to just
yes.
buy at a discount. But aside that, yeah, I am literally clueless about Reddit. So,
Yeah,
but
you
yeah.
tell us more about, what you are learning in the options trading shortly. But I
Mm,
want us to jump into the economic data because one of the highlights was that there was inflation, which jumped to 3% year
yep.
on year, which I think at the end of the day, inflation is not something that is good for most consumers, right? Because it means in nominal terms, those people who are in fixed income, let's say in cash, it's really losing value. But for investors who are compounding their money, there might still be opportunities and the real return would be great. So, what's your view on the increasing interest rates? And today, the retail numbers they came lower than expected, and
Mm,
which kind of like shows that the sales are dropped
yeah.
month on month and year on year.
I mean, there are a lot of factors that could be played into this. I mean, I think the street was expecting 2.9%, and we got 3.0% to
Hmm.
me. In the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things, I don't think it really changes a lot of things. Why? Because we're still gonna get more data in subsequent month. And
Yes.
I'm expecting that because I think I was reading somewhere that we're expecting rent to go down. And that's one of the factors that we also consider when we're looking at the CPI data. The retail numbers that came in lower than expected, which means that people are not spending as we expect, which is still okay too. Like, especially when we're seeing that there might be some streamlining going on with Doge, and people might be
Yes.
like, okay, maybe I have to leave this job and I have to go find another job. So people can be a little bit cautious, but in the grand scheme of things, if we're just student of the market and you have your 3 to 6 month emergency fund just saved up in a savings bank, and that gives you some buffer, then the other money you have will just play in the market. So
Yeah.
again, I tend not to focus too much on that. I
Yeah.
believe that the new administration, they're working hard to make sure that at least the deficit, the US deficit comes down, but that might take a while. But even with that, I still stay very optimistic about the US market. I'm still very bullish about it
Yeah.
because again, AI, artificial intelligence, these are things that are going to increase productivity. And if we have assets in the market working for us, it's going to play in our
That's
favor.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. I think, so that was the issue, but also you mentioned the issue of Doge, and Elon is saying, I saw his ex post that their goal is to cut 4 billion a day, and then over the next 1 year, I think
Mhm.
to cut the government debt by 1 trillion, because I think it's about 36 trillion. That is the
Mhm.
US debt. Now, what that could do is possibly, yeah, if they are able to do that without increasing the expenditure.
Knowing that the market is always going to give us opportunities to buy. And if
Mhm.
we keep buying and believe in the long-term thesis of the stock and the crypto market, we're gonna be good. So may the market always be in our favor.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you again next week. Thank you.